Good afternoon and welcome to our January 13th briefing. This is our second briefing for the Thursday, January 18th formal meeting. Chairman Martin will be participating today remotely. We do not have any discussion items today, so once this briefing is over, we will be able to leave early today. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to you, Dudley.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair Wisenhunt. Good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. We do have the items to kind of brief, most of them for the first time here for January 18th.
My meeting is a county commission. Complete this later on. I'll call you after the meeting's over.
No worries. I just want to let you get finished up with that. Okay, and so basically that's what we have. Don't have any discussion items since we spent all morning going through those, and then we do not have any closed session items. So I'll go ahead and dive into the agenda. The first item is a public hearing. It's a public hearing pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 153A-250. It's a proposed ordinance granting a non-emergency ambulance franchise within Forsyth County. So, Gordon, you want to talk just for a second? Public hearing will continue, and how the board might want to handle that.
Yes, the public hearing, as you know, was held open at the December 21st meeting, and it will resume next week at the January 18th meeting. And so both sides in favor of the new franchise and opposed to it will be given an opportunity to present any additional information they have to the board. And then after the public hearing is closed, the board will need to vote whether to approve the franchise or not.
Gordon, would the public hearing still be 15 minutes per side?
That's up to whatever the board wants to do. You could certainly do that.
Is that what the board desires, or would you want it shorter since we've already had one public hearing?
I don't have any problem with whatever it takes, you know. If it takes 15 minutes, fine. If it takes 20 minutes, fine.
Well, we need to decide on a time. Do you want 15 minutes each side again?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And
They
so,
just need to be prepared.
And so our Emergency Services Director, Joey Hunley, is here. He has been working to try to gather as much information as he can about kind of the way services are delivered throughout the state. Director Hunley, are these their copies?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One for you as well. Good afternoon.
Hey.
I'm simply today trying to answer some of the questions that came up. I certainly, we've done some outreach and haven't gotten a lot of feedback from other folks, but what Mr. Watts is handing out to you now is one of the questions was just comparison counties and what other folks are doing. And I know you've gotten in your emails or whatever a whole multitude of things. So we're just trying to clean this up and bullet point it for you so that you can look at it a little cleaner. And so what you ultimately see here for us is comparable counties and the number of franchises is a list of the counties that, or a portion of the list of the counties, in fact, that you were provided in one of the packets by one of the franchise agreement, or I think by MedX. And just a number of authorized franchise services that they have, and this data does come from the North Carolina Office of EMS website, so that's where it's validated from. What I did ask, and I've actually made personal phone calls to the folks in the third column there that says number of franchises in the 911 system. I've personally spoken to or received an email from those respective directors. So as you can see there, you know, Mecklenburg County doesn't do franchise services. And so they don't have anybody in the system. Wake County does do franchise services, and they have 5, but they have none running in the 911 system. Guilford County has 2 franchise services, and the star there on the second page will just, at the bottom of the page there will tell you that they use one service as a backup system only, and then the second service is primarily convalescent stuff, but they will use them as a backup in their system if they are overloaded to that point. We have two. We are the only service that I can find to date that uses franchise services in the 911 system the way that we use them, where they are actually primarily dispatched as part of the 911 system. Davidson County, they've got 3 services, but they don't use them, again, only as backup. Surrey County, same thing. They use them only as backup. Stokes County has 1, and they've got 1 franchisee. Theoretically, they use them in the 911 system, but that doesn't always go the way that they would like to see it go. And then the second page there just outlines for you where the 4 franchise services that we have now, meaning Lifestar and Providence at the basic life support level, those are the places that they actually operate. I added MedX in there, and just note of the difference that Lifestar and Providence are basic life support services, as we've talked about in the past. MedX provides advanced life support and basic life support, but we would only be asking for a franchise agreement for them for basic life support today, or as part of this process. And then, as I mentioned last week, part of the challenge with COVID and allowing the hospitals to do what they've done, their franchise agreements actually are only for advanced life support. And you can see there, Novant is operating in Forsyth, Mecklenburg, and Surrey. And then Air Care is operating in Davidson, Forsyth, Guilford, Surrey, and Wilkes County EMS. But they are using their advanced life support ambulances to do basic life support stuff, and that is not in context with the franchise agreement as it's authorized by the board, but we did issue during COVID an exception to that because of COVID and all of the things that it brought. So, so part of this is trying to clean that back up and get that squared away. So I know you've gotten a lot of information from other services, and I will try to answer any questions that you may have based on the information that you've gotten, if you've had a chance to digest any of that, or take some more questions for next week.
Are there questions?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to talk to you offline.
Just a moment, Commissioner. We have a commissioner speaking. Just a minute, and then I'll call on you, Dr. Martin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can talk offline.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Don, sorry.
Okay, Dr. Martin.
No, that's good. Just a question. I did talk to a person I know that's actually in the assisted living, manages assisted living center, and I want to make sure I understood one thing. He did mention that that there had been a change in if his assisted living facility was going to call for just a transport to a hospital, non-emergency, that he was still calling, or not, that was changed and they were asked to call the 911 system. Does that sound correct to you? Is that correct?
I didn't hear the end of that. You said that they are still calling 911, or they are not calling 911?
Well, they had been instructed to call 911 for a for a transport, non-emergency transport to the hospital. He said, obviously, if it's an emergency transport, they've always called 911. But he said sometimes somebody needs to go to the hospital in a non-emergency issue, and he said, but now that they actually go through the 911 system.
So I will quote Commissioner Wisenhunt from last week when she said, every question you ask makes this thing more complicated. And that is, in fact, true. And so the assisted living facilities and the nursing facilities should not be calling 911 for non-emergency calls. They should be calling the non-emergency franchise services to meet that need. However, a lot of the direction given to the individual skilled nursing facilities or assisted living facilities are to simply call 911, because we're not going to give them a 2 or 4 or 6 hour response window. We're going to simply show up as soon as we can get somebody there. Now, in some of those cases, because we use Because we use franchise services in our 911 system, the person showing up to that skilled nursing facility is in fact Lifestar or Providence. And our preference, because we use Lifestar and Providence in the 911 system, is that the 911 ambulance that we would send to that assisted living facility is in fact Providence or Lifestar as a priority 2 or a non-emergency call. So that's how we're trying to use them in the system. But you know, as I indicated last week too, they're running 23% of our 911 calls, and that's all mixes.
Yes, he said that was the case, that it never was one of our ambulances. It was a Lifestar Providence. But it just seems that's a cumbersome way to do business. It looks like they'd be a lot better for non-emergency. They just make their own arrangements, and it sort of takes a middle person out of it. I mean, it also seems like it clogs up our 911 system to do that.
I could certainly have a conversation offline with you for hours about how many non-emergency 911 calls the 911 system gets tied up in. And I think, you know, the word I'll use is easy, is that it's easy for those facilities to call 911 as opposed to follow the processes in place, because they know we're coming at some point.
I want to make sure Chairman Martin heard the answer right. I mean, the answer is no. They need to be calling the non-emergency.
Yes,
they need to be coordinating that with the non-emergency providers themselves and not calling the 911 center. If in fact somebody has directed them, or for some reason they've started doing that, that actually could explain some of our call volume increases and some of the issues that we are dealing with, if that is in fact what is happening. Perhaps, Chairman Martin, if you can coordinate, or Joey, if you can coordinate with Chairman Martin about who that is, and let's try to dig a little deeper.
Mr. Manager, I'd like to clarify what Chief Hundley was saying. Chief, you weren't saying that you're giving that direction.
No, sir.
Okay, you said it was given. Who is giving the direction to call 911 for non-emergency calls?
In our experience, and based on other things that we've looked at data-wise, it will be nursing home direction. Nursing home leadership or assisted living facility leadership will simply tell folks, call 911. In fact, we've had calls where, you know, a person who lives in a nursing home or an assisted living facility goes to the doctor, gets blood work done. It takes the blood work 3 days to come back, and the blood work reveals that, wow, you've got something wrong, and the doctor simply calls the nursing home and says, call 911, this person needs to go to the emergency room for blood work from 3 days ago. That's not an emergency, right? So we deal with that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah, well, I will check with him. I'd be glad to. But in the conversation I had with him, he seemed to suggest that they had customarily just called the transport services. And then I got the impression that he was instructed to not do that and was instructed to do the opposite. But I very well may have heard that wrong. And he had talked, I think, to his folks. So there could be confusion in there, but it does. But I'll follow up with him and see.
I will say too, one of the things that I've tasked staff with, it's just a matter of where it's at on the list, is to send skilled nursing facilities and assisted living facilities a letter and like an education one-pager of what to call 911 for, what to call a non-emergency transport service for, and so I can't tell you where we are in getting that thing out, but it is on the list, if it's not gone out already, of things that we are trying to do.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Further questions? Thank you, Joey.
Thanks, ma'am.
Very good. Yeah, and if you have other questions between now and next Thursday, just let us know. All right, you've got one special resolution. There is a resolution declaring the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners intent to close Vaughn Road and calling a date for a public hearing on the matter. And Shaylee will review this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good
I
afternoon.
promise you, this is way more straightforward. You're not going to have a whole debate about it. Pretty straightforward. We'll be good. So, let's see. This is the closing of Vaughn Road. The petitioner was Zahara Cohen. Actually, Vaughn Road is effectively, okay. Vaughn Road is effectively acting as her driveway at this point because it's been depleted back to. All of Vaughn Road is located within Forsyth County. Planning and Development Services concluded that there was no negative impact to closing the road, as did State DOT. And then the public hearing is scheduled for February 15th, 2024. This is just an overview of Vaughn Road. This is Zahara Cohen's land. There's actually a house there now, and like I said, this acts as her driveway. This is just showing that all of this street resides in unincorporated Forsyth County. Barely, but it's in there. And then here is the letter that we received from the State DOT requesting that it be closed. With that, are there any questions?
Questions?
Just an observation that always standing one is, for me, is that it don't cause anybody access problems, and if it does, y'all tell us that. Well, when one is up for consideration of being closed, and then it is ultimately closed, and right now maybe this road during the bad weather might get scraped. Well, when it's off the system, it don't get scraped. Is people aware of those kinds of things?
Yes,
Okay.
they are.
Other questions?
Just a question, understanding, I noticed that there's only one signature on the abandonment petition. Is that standard? In theory, I guess you could say that Duke Energy is affected in terms of their access.
It is pretty standard. Normally, they're only getting the signatures from the petitioners, and then we send out the public notice to let people know.
Got it. And what's the fee structure for the?
Sorry?
What's the fee structure for filing these petitions?
I don't know that there is one. Ashley, are you aware of the fee structure? I'm trying to think.
Will you please repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking a couple of questions so that I would better understand how the process works at the county level. And that question was, what is our fee structure for the petition? If we have to post the property, if we have to send out notices.
Normally, if it's from the state, which this one happens to be, the county covers the cost.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, if I may, if you read through the resolution, what the county's practice is to put those publication and mailing costs on the petitioner. And so they take care of all that. The county doesn't have to do it.
Okay. Thank you. That was, yeah.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. All right, next item are minutes, and they
They will go out tomorrow.
okay, so expect them in your inbox tomorrow. Agenda item 4 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance appropriates funding for the Rural Operating Assistance Grant Program, and you've also got the Elderly and Disabled, or EdTap money. And Kyle Wolf's going to review this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So back in, October of 2023, the board authorized staff to apply for and accept a FY24 Rural Operating Assistance Program grant for the Elderly and Disabled Transportation Assistance Program, or EdTap, and the Employment Transportation Assistance Program. And so this item is appropriating funding, and so it's $163,961 of new money, and then $97,122 from fund balance from prior year funding that was unspent, and then allocating those funds for those two different programs, $163,852 for EdTap and $97,231 for Employment Transportation Assistance. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Okay.
Again, just understanding how the process, works and eligibility process works at the county level. So this would be an interlocal agreement with WISTA to actually provide the service under contract with the county using these funds, is that?
Correct. So I'm sorry, the interlocal agreement is with the City of Winston it's really for the EdTap program, the Elderly and Disabled Assistance Transportation Program, and then they will subcontract, they'll partial part of that out to a few other different vendors.
Okay.
Correct.
And what is the eligibility for using the program? What are the criteria? Is it an income-based or income or age-based? And what's the residency eligibility? Is it anywhere in the county, including within municipalities, or?
It is anywhere within the county, including municipalities. I can get you a more definitive answer on what the eligibility is. I believe the EdTap program is really more geared towards the elderly, and then the employment funds are, I think, all ages, really. I mean, maybe not youth. I'm not sure about the younger workers, but I can get you more definitive answers on the eligibility.
Okay. I get questions about, transportation services availability from folks.
Sure.
And I need to know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you
Absolutely.
very much.
Further questions? Okay.
Thanks, Kyle. All right. Agenda item 5 is an amendment to the 2016 Schools Capital Projects Ordinance for East Forsyth High School renovation project. Adam's going to come up, but Darrell Walker is here, and I know there'll probably be some questions for Darrell.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This item is an amendment to the 2016 Schools Capital Project Ordinance. It would appropriate $305,853 to the East Forsyth High School project for the purchase of electrical systems and equipment that has a extensive lead time before the work. It would bring the total appropriated for East Forsyth up from $1,850,000 to $2,155,853, and it would leave just over $7.8 million unappropriated or unallocated among the various projects out of the original 350. There's still additional capacity that hasn't been appropriated yet or put into the budget reserve, but is available in revenue. And Darrell's here if there's specific questions.
Darrell? Is this different from what the school bond said they would do at East Forsyth?
The dollar amount? So we haven't gone to bid yet on this is just to buy the electrical service ahead of time. If when we come back with a final price, which will probably be April, at that point in time, there could be a decision to do the project or not do the project, but we would still be able to use the electrical service.
Could I follow up a quick question?
Yes.
I did see on the attachment that, on the materials that this is there's only like 8 million left in the 350 million. So in order to do the East Forsyth project, you would have to get into the 70 some odd million that we, the commissioners, put together this past fall. It would use up almost most of it. Is that correct?
That potentially could happen, yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions?
So, yeah, I do have some questions. So my questions is around the heartburn, and I'm not quite sure what the inflation cost will be when you receive the report back in April. And what, I know you can't speak for the school board or superintendent, what are their thoughts about the inflationary cost?
For this project or just in general?
Just in general.
Just in general, yeah.
More
I think,
specifically this one, though.
yeah, it's a big concern for all of us. We still have 2 projects. We will be taking the final project for the cost for the Brunson project to the board in February. It actually goes on the street for bid next week. And so at that point, it's kind of a crossroads and deciding factor is how we continue to move forward. Obviously, whatever a decision could be made to keep moving forward or stop at that point.
Yeah.
So
I would like to hear from the superintendent via the school board to let us know their sentiments and where they are.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Darrell.
All right, so there's one grant item, it's agenda item 6, which is a resolution authorizing the application and execution of grant agreements between Forsyth County and North Carolina Department of Transportation for the Aviation Career Education Academy. Mark Davidson.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Each year, the North Carolina Department of Transportation Division of Aviation, in alignment with the FAA's Aviation Career Education ACE Academy program, offers a grant program to inspire young people to explore and pursue the many rewarding careers available in the state's aerospace sector. Grant funds must be used to cover direct costs of ACE academies, such as supplies, vendor costs. Past ACE academies have purchased such items as flight simulators, flight field trip tickets, aircraft rides, model rocket kits, and safety materials. For the past 12 years, you might know that we've been partnering with the Jim Shaw ACE Academy and to ensure future success. Staff recommends prior approval to apply for and execute future grants over the next 3 years. Each year, the grant is $3,000 and is 100% funded by the state with no local match. Prior approval will assist in applying in a timely manner, receiving the grant, and reimbursing the ACE Academy at the conclusion of the summer camps, or sort of a pass-through on this. And it's been a very successful program over the last several years. They've been holding at the Forsyth, the new Forsyth Maisie S. Woodruff Aviation Lab the last couple of years. Scholarships go out to about 30% of the campers, and this last year they hosted over 65 campers. And if you want to mark your dates for this next year's camp, middle school is going to be the June 24th through the 28th, and then high school, they have a camp for high school students, and that's July 8th through the 12th.
Questions?
Jim Shaw's company guarantees payment.
I'm sorry, say again, sir?
Jim Shaw's company guarantees payment.
Jim Shaw has passed away. His son, Junior, unfortunately passed away a year after taking the helm of the camp. And the last 2 years, I've been working with his granddaughter, Jim Shaw's granddaughter, Alexandra, and she's been very great in organizing the camp. And all we do is pass the money. She gives us an application, and we pass it on to the NCDOT, and then we'll give the money.
That is an answer yes, correct?
Yes, I guess, yes, that's what you're asking.
Further questions?
All right, agenda item 7 is also Mark's. It is a contract. It's a resolution authorizing the execution of agreement with Atlantic Emergency Solutions Incorporated for maintenance, repair, and transportation services for the crash fire rescue truck.
Yeah, this agenda item, as Dudley just said, would authorize execution of agreement with Atlantic Emergency Solutions to provide maintenance, repair, and transportation services for the Smith Reynolds Airport crash fire rescue truck. If you're not familiar, the Smith Reynolds Airport is a federal aviation regulated Part 139 airport. It means we're certified for scheduled non-scheduled service, and we are required to operate by the FAA a crash fire rescue truck to respond to aircraft emergencies that may occur on the airfield. Forsyth County owns a 2007 Oshkosh Stryker crash fire rescue truck, which complies with the FAA requirements for Index B, and the truck is capable of carrying 1,500 gallons of water, 500 pounds of potassium-based dry chemical, and 210 gallons of what we call AFFF foam. In addition, additional equipment is also on the truck that for help with firefighting. Just so you know, if this emergency vehicle was not properly working, the airport would be in violation of its certification under a Part 139, and certain air charter airline companies will not be able to operate at the airport, which would lead to potential revenue loss. Atlantic Emergency Solutions is located in Greensboro and has Oshkosh certified technicians who are capable of working on this vehicle and are the sole source provider of such services in the area. We have been working with Atlantic Emergency Solutions to negotiate a service contract to provide 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365-day maintenance and repair on the airport crash fire rescue truck from this January 1st till June 30th, 2025, allowing the county to pay for needed services at a fixed hourly compensation rate for any services rendered during the term, and a total payment not to exceed $100,000.
Questions? Thank you, Mark.
I have one.
Excuse me,
Madam
go ahead.
Chair. Mark, I read the cost of the services and the items listed, and I was a little surprised to see that changing tires was in that list. And we've got, it seems to me we've got folks right across the street who could change the tires on the truck, I suspect, and certainly get there a lot quicker than somebody from Greensboro, even if it was at 2 o'clock in the morning. But am I missing something here? I assume this is, you call them when you need them, but would we want to call them to fix a flat tire?
We have always had to outsource that maintenance requirement of changing the tires. These are, I'd like for the fleet manager to mention that. Hold on.
Yeah, Dr. Martin, we got a separate contract for changing and repairing tires for that unit.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Any further questions?
Madam Chair, I would just be interested, how do we staff the truck?
How do we staff the truck? We have one full-time crash fire rescue certified firefighter on site. And so, and then once they respond to the emergency, they were able to call others to help out. Chris Vogler's here if you want to hear more about the firefighting capabilities.
I just was interested, the operational hours of Smith Reynolds are, longer than an 8-hour day, right?
Yep.
So do you have someone to come in and relieve the staff person?
Yeah. Come on up, Chris.
Yeah.
I'll try to answer. We often send his firefighters to firefighting school for aircraft in South Carolina. So we have a couple of them that are certified with this truck. And there he is. Okay.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just to answer your question, Commissioner Bessie, we do have somebody there 24/7 that's providing the crash fire rescue service. They work a 24-hour shift, get 2 days off, typical of a firefighting shift. We also have backup employees so that if somebody is out sick, taking vacation, we have somebody that can provide that service. It's definitely one of our, I would say, priority services for the airport. Right. And even though the tower, I think they close at 9:30, we still have flights coming in, 24 hours a day.
Okay. So the lights are going to be on all night on a regular basis?
Absolutely, sir.
So if somebody, has an in-flight emergency and they need to divert to the nearest place they can go, and, y'all might get a call saying you've got a distress plane coming in at 3:30 in the morning?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And I'd be remiss to say, and we have a lot of partners that help us with that too, county fire departments in the city of Winston-Salem. It's not just a one-man show. We're there on site, so we're usually the first ones there, but they are a huge help to our emergency response procedures.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
It's great being with the county. I have all these helpers here. Wasn't always that way. I still got more for you.
Go for it.
Okay.
Is it on?
What are you going to do?
I'm doing Resource Institute.
Pardon me?
Is Resource Institute next?
Yes. Okay, I didn't know if that was going to be you or Damon. So, yeah, item 8 is the Brushy Fork Creek project. So, Mark.
Okay. This agenda item would authorize the execution of an agreement with Resource Institute Incorporated to remediate and restore Brushy Fork Creek where it borders Smith Reynolds Airport and residential properties within the municipal limits of Winston-Salem. With the help of North Carolina Cooperative Extension Department, they issued a request for qualifications, and 4 firms submitted qualifications, including KCI Associates of North Carolina, Freeze and Nicholas Incorporated, Resource Institute Incorporated, and Kimley Horn and Associates. Resource Institute was selected by the committee and provide professional design services for the stabilization of banks and removal of debris from the stream channels in Brushy Fork Creek. Services also include developing bid documents, providing bid assistance, obtaining necessary permits, performing construction administration services, and assisting with project closeout. Plans and specifications are required to be sealed by a professional engineer. The contract amount shall not exceed $250,000. The county has received a grant from the North Carolina Land and Water Fund in the amount of $300,000, and another $300,000 was recently voted upon by the City Council on Monday night to help remediate and restore portions of the creek of approximately 2,100 feet in length, and the county will be managing and contracting this remedial work.
Question? Okay, thank you, Mark.
Okay, off the hook.
Off and running. Very good. All right, agenda item, I'm going to make sure I don't miss them here. 9 is a resolution approving an amendment to the agreement with Sierra Cedar LLC to provide optimization and consultant services for the Oracle Cloud solution. Chantel.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The agenda item before you is an amendment to the agreement with Sierra Cedar to provide optimization and consulting services for our FC Connect system, which is our human resources, finance, and budget systems. As you are aware, the county went live with the finance portion of the system over a year ago. HR went live in May 2023, and budget went live last week. The current contract expires January 31st of 2024, and this amendment would extend the existing contract through June 30th and add an additional $75,000, which would provide us with 2 quarterly updates remaining this fiscal year and any consultation hours needed. We do have funds available in the existing project budget to cover the cost of this contract, and no additional county funds are needed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
I have one. The question I have is that this is a group that we have, obviously we're behind, we're aware of a lot of challenges that we have experienced, and this is a group that was to help us overcome those challenges, correct?
Yes, this is the group that actually helped us with implementation of the system. We also have a separate contract with Cherry Beckert, who's helping specifically with the audit items that need to be addressed.
We got that. So, and would it be fair to say that we have been pleased with the services that we have received so far, or not?
From Cherry Beckert or from Sierra Cedar?
No. Yes, Sierra Cedars.
We have had challenges with Sierra Cedar, but we absolutely need them for these quarterly updates and these consulting hours, especially because we just went live last week with budget. And they are the implementing organization, but our team is working all the time closely with them to overcome the various challenges.
So what I'm really getting at, obviously we need them. I'm getting at that maybe they owe us some free services.
The dollars that we have already received several credits from Sierra Cedar, which I'm happy to provide to you as a follow-up due to the various challenges we have had with them.
So, okay, so everybody's feeling hunky-dory happy that we're going to pay another $75,000 to a company that's part of the reason that we're behind.
I am not saying that we are happy with it, but what I'm saying is we have already negotiated various credits with them for the challenges we already faced, and this particular contract is really for the quarterly updates, which is more of a standard type of service, and then just in the event we need other consulting hours, and we only pay for the consulting on what is actually needed, and hopefully our reliance on them continues to decrease.
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Chantel.
Thank you. All right, agenda item 10 is a resolution authorizing execution agreement with Chef Units LLC for the purchase and refurbishment of an outreach vehicle. I think Camilla, it's not written on this, but it's Camilla Pleasance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I had that right. Come on up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you. The agenda item before you would authorize an agreement with Chef Units LLC, which would allow us to refurbish and make renovations to the current We Care bus. We would be using COVID funds for this project, and this would allow us to make those modifications and improvement to the unit so that we can better provide public health services out in the community in their setting. The unit will be kept multifunctional so that other departments across the county can continue to use the We Care bus as well. And we are working hand in hand with Fleet on this project also. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Very quick one. Was this a project that could be bid?
Yes, this project was bid out, and Chef Units was the lowest bidder.
Got it. I missed that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Agenda item 11 and 12 both deal with fleet, and so Stephen's going to come up and review these. You got a resolution for some purchase of 3 2024 Dodge Durango police pursuit vehicles and an ambulance. Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Forsyth County Sheriff's Office is requesting to purchase 3 2024 V8 Dodge Durangos police pursuit rated vehicles. These proposed 2024 Durangos will be placed into service, replacing 2 existing transportation vehicles and 1 administrative vehicle that was recently wrecked. The 3 Durangos will be ordered from a Horse, Ilderton Dodge, DBA, Ilderton Dodge, Chrysler Jeep, Ram, and of Ilderton. Placing the order will require accepting the terms of the North Carolina Sheriff's Association Contract 2208-0913RR. The total cost for the 3 Durangos is $128,776.77. Forsyth County General Services Director and the Forsyth County Sheriff recommend the purchase of the 3 Dodge Durango PPVs from a Horse, Ilderton Dodge. And these 2 of the Dodge Durangos are already in stock. The 3rd one's on the way. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you, Steve.
All right. Next, we have an ambulance. Forsyth County EMS Department is requesting the purchase of 1 new additional ambulance, which will be an additional ambulance to the fleet. The Emergency Services Director has determined that the status of the ambulance fleet is not optimal, with an average of 8 to 10 ambulances of the 28 total being out of service for a variety of reasons, mostly broke down in any given day. The Emergency Services staff has found 1 Type 3 Ford E450 ambulance to purchase for $267,607, which would include the graphic striker stretcher and the power load system. The ambulance would be ordered from Northwestern Emergency Vehicles in Jefferson, North Carolina. The vendor's estimated delivery date for this unit, the end of January, around January 31st. The Forsyth County General Services Director and Emergency Services Director recommend purchasing the new ambulance from the Northwestern Emergency Vehicles, and this through HGAC contract.
Are all these vehicles, including the sheriff's vehicles, are they in line with what you typically have to pay for vehicles?
Yeah, because I called around and I found 1 unit comparable to this from Atlantic Emergency Vehicles, and their cost was $310,000 through the HGAC contracts pricing. So I try to make sure we stay on top and make sure we're getting a good deal.
You always do a good job, Steve.
Well, thank you. We try.
Are there questions? Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Very good. All right, agenda item 13 is a resolution awarding a contract to the Humane Society of Piedmont Incorporated to provide animal spay-neuter surgeries for the Forsyth County Animal Shelter, and Kirsten Briggs will review this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This agenda item would award a contract to the Humane Society of Piedmont for our shelter animal spay and neuter surgeries for the remainder of the fiscal year, not to exceed $50,000. This is pursuant to our County Ordinance, Section C-47, which requires all unsanitized dogs and cats adopted from the county, animal shelter to be spayed and neutered prior to their adoption.
Questions?
How's capacity at the shelter today?
Full.
Full.
With a snake.
Wow. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten. All right, agenda item 14 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with Wake Forest University Baptist Medical Center for the Faith Health Chaplaincy Program. Kyle Wolf for review.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. So this item is necessary to authorize execution of a contract with Wake Forest University Baptist Medical Center for the Faith Health Chaplaincy Program. This program is listed in the FY24 budget ordinance under Section 10 Employee Health Benefits Internal Service Fund, but the provider of the service was not listed and was inadvertently left off of the attachment at the back of the ordinance, which lists organizations receiving funding more than $50,000. So this item is really approving the contract with Wake Forest for our chaplaincy program that's paid through the Employee Health Benefits Fund. I'm happy to try and answer any questions you have.
Questions?
All right, thank you, Kyle. All right, agenda item 15 is a resolution authorizing the execution of an estoppel certificate and standstill agreement in favor of the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. And Fred is going to come up and review this.
I'll just say briefly, I also have with me Brian Bueland. He is a representative of Triangle Residential Options for Substance Abusers, or otherwise known as TROSA. And he may want to say a few words as well. This item is at the request of TROSA. They've asked for some help from us in closing on a loan. So background of this, and I know some of the commissioners know a lot more of the history of TROSA than I do, but TROSA holds a ground lease near Union Cross Park. Under the lease that was assigned from ARCA, they have a lease on that property till 2061, and they use that property to operate a substance abuse residency program. So in the past couple of years, TROSA has made pretty substantial capital investments in that property. Specifically, they've built 4 new congregate living facilities on the site. And through those efforts, they've expanded to their program's total capacity to 200 beds. They paid for that work through fundraising out of pocket, so these were their cash reserves, but as part of making the financials work for that, they've also applied for, I believe, 2 loans from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. And those loans have been conditionally awarded. As a condition for closing of that, the Housing Finance Agency is asking us to enter into what they've called an estoppel and standstill agreement. It's essentially a side agreement. And this agreement does a lot of technical things. I'll try not to get into weeds on it, but we essentially have to give notice to the Housing Finance Agency if the TROSA is in violation of their lease. They currently are not. If that were to arise, we'd have to notify the Housing Finance Agency and give them an opportunity to intervene. And the main substantive effect of this agreement is if TROSA, for whatever reason, discontinues use of is unable to continue using the property, either because they default on the loan or because they cease to continue operating at the site, Forsyth County would have to negotiate in good faith with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency to find a mutually acceptable tenant. So in effect, entering into this agreement would mean that until 2061, that site will be used in conformity with the guidelines of the Supporting Housing and Development Program for the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. One other thing I wanted to mention, importantly, nothing in this document makes us financially responsible for repayment of the loan, and this loan is not a security interest against the property. With that, Mr. Bueland, Brian Bueland may have a few other comments.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Fred mentioned, we have secured 2 rounds of funding through NCHFA. We have done this successfully several times in Durham. Given the extent of the construction efforts that we have put towards Union Cross, we thought this was a great opportunity to supplement some of the cash needed. There are 2 rounds. The first round is $600,000, and that's what needs to close first. The second round is $1.2 million. So we're talking about a total of $1.8 million that every penny is going into that property for development purposes. We've been working with NCHFA for the past 15 years in Durham. We've got a great longstanding relationship with them. I understand there are some nuances since the county does own the property here. But we appreciate the support here, and I'm here for any questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 16 is a resolution selecting and awarding a contract to Renew Energy Solutions LLC as the design builder for the Tanglewood Maintenance Building Solar Project. James Anderson is here, and Minor Barnett's back there. He's been involved in it as well.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The item before you selects and awards a contract to Renew Energy Solutions to serve as the design builder for the Tanglewood Solar Project. The project is for the installation of a solar photovoltaic system on the Tanglewood Maintenance Facility. The initial size of the system is to be determined during the design phase, but it will be maximized to take full advantage of our budget that we have available for the project. Eventually, the system can be up to 75 kW of production. This is the contract demand for the facility, which is the limit imposed by Duke Energy for grid-tied systems. Renew was selected by an RFQ process advertised by City County Purchasing. They were the only firm to respond to the RFQ, and staff have reviewed their qualifications and determined that they were qualified to provide design build services for the project. And staff have negotiated a not-to-exceed fee of $12,500 for the design phase. The total budget for the project is $100,000, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions? Our last solar project has been successful, has it not?
It has been.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, James. All right, and you probably are also going to review the next one. It's a resolution establishing contingency for the Law Enforcement Detention Center lock project.
So this item establishes a $50,000 contingency, authorizing the county manager to execute change orders in an amount not to exceed $50,000. At the December 7th meeting, the Board of Commissioners awarded a contract to Cornerstone Detention Products Incorporated for the lock project. The approved resolution did not include a provision for contingency or establish change order authority. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you, James.
All right, thanks, James. All right, we have two property matters. I assume Kirby's going to handle both of them. Item 18 is the execution of the lease agreement with Forsyth County and Caladium for the new museum lease, and then you've also got some personal property surplus.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to bring these items before you today. As background on the first item, the board authorized a construction agreement with Caladium in 2021. And that agreement specified the terms and conditions under which the county would construct the new museum facility. That agreement also established the general terms and conditions under which the county would lease the facility to Caladium once it was complete. And that's obviously right around the corner. The general lease terms that both parties agreed to in 2021 are that the premises is 120 West 3rd Street. That's comprised of 2 tax parcels. The term length is 20 years. It's a nominal rental rate. The tenant, which is Caladium, is responsible for all operating costs of the facility, and that's utilities, maintenance, and insurance. And they're also responsible for capital repairs in general. The county is responsible for ordinary roof maintenance, as well as replacement and repairs to the exterior of the facility and replacement of the roof. So the vast majority of that cost and responsibility rests on the tenant. The use of the facility is limited to operating as a children's and science museum and other ancillary uses, which may include a gift shop and commissary. So since that time, which that was a pretty general agreement because it related to the construction of the facility and it had a section on the lease, the actual lease agreement has been negotiated, and you'll see a final version attached to your resolution. The final version does elaborate on the use section and allows the tenant, which is Caladium, to host special events at the premises, and also allows the county to host special events at the premises up to 4 times a year at no charge. The Caladium board unanimously approved the lease on January 4th, and if approved by the Board of Commissioners, a 10-day notice will be published following your approval, and the effective date of the lease will be February 1st in time for the museum's opening. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
Questions? Yes.
I don't think I have, well, maybe one question. Other than the $30 million cost, what other expenses can the county expect to pay to sustain the Caladium?
So the way the agreement is structured is that there really should be no liability for the county outside of that ordinary roof maintenance, which is going to be a new facility. So hopefully there won't be a lot of that. And then down the road, there will be a roof replacement and repairs or replacement to the exterior of the facility. And those are just because those are big capital items that through negotiations with the museum, the county felt comfortable retaining. So there should be no operating expenses that rest with the organization.
Okay, thank you for
Yes,
sharing
ma'am.
that.
Yeah, I would say there's an annual appropriation that is a fairly significant portion of their operating cost. And so that is an appropriation, but that's decided annually by this board, and it's part of the budget process.
So how do we calculate that? Is it based on their request, and then we kind of figure out what we can do based on that request, or?
Yeah, it's been treated as a special appropriation. Under the old rules, once something had gotten in the cycle, it was in my continuation budget. Last year, we zeroed those out and went into the budget process without anything being continued, and obviously it was funded, and the continuation funding was at the same level it had been in the past. That will be, at the winter work session, I need to get some direction on how you want us to handle special appropriations and whether or not things like the support for the museum, which are really more built into the budget, is whether you want that in my continuation budget or whether you want that to be an item of discussion. But it had been really a historical level of support for the museum.
Approximately, I guess, in the past, approximately how much has been given to them?
I think in the current budget, Kyle, it's $275,000.
That's correct. It's 275. It's been that for several years.
Yeah, and the city supports it. I saw that the other day. Maybe.
I believe it's less than that, but it's not a whole lot less, I don't think, but it is.
200,000 sticks in my head for some reason. So they do get some support also from the city of Winston-Salem.
Okay, thank you. So what I would say, just in all sincerity, is in having, and this is just for the record, in having conversations with some of the constituents in District A, there is concern that the Callidium does not reach out to all citizens, especially as relates to the, some of our, especially young people, that if you were to look at our science scores, for example, in Winston-Forsyth County schools, primarily African-American students, Hispanic students, poor students, definitely they could benefit from real-time experiential learning through the Science Museum. And so, as I told the constituents, I would definitely put it on record that, some of the citizens would like to see more outreach from Callidium so that all of our children can benefit. What I will say is that obviously there is a promotion of Callidium, and it goes to say just in, from the public school sector, as much as we promote, sometimes we have to figure out and rethink how to do it again to reach all of our families and all of our children. So I would be interested in knowing from Callidium how they are connecting out to the community, especially in the communities that are and have been less likely to come over into the museum, so that all of our children can benefit from it. And then the last point I would, put on record is that as a space that is for all Forsyth County citizens and is definitely dedicated to the use of a museum, we may want to look at it being more flexible, because as you go across the country, museums are starting to be transformed into more flexible spaces so that you don't get caught up in the box of the museum, which is sometimes seen as a stoic, dead place versus a place that comes to life. And as I was looking at actually Callidium's website, it seems like there are, quite a bit of programming, and possibly I can try to get more information on their programming, but I would be interested in what will be the creative use of the museum so that it is not seen as your 20th century style museum where, people may or may not usually go in, but because it's not seen as something that is a viable come-to-life experience for whether it's a child or an adult or whatever. So I am interested in, some of the programming there that could, make sure that we're not kind of, well, what I would say is that we're actually utilizing the space from a 21st century perspective. Thank you.
Oh my, I don't know where to start. Some of us were at Callidium last week, and I can assure you that Callidium is going out of their way to make sure that all our school children are included. I urge you to go and visit Callidium and share what you see with your constituents.
Thank you.
And
I will.
Yeah, I would just add, Commissioner Woodbury, I recently did a site visit there, and what I would, the executive director could probably speak to this better, but their number of Winston-Salem Forsyth County students that go through Callidium, I was actually like shocked by. It was a very high number. I don't remember what it was. And they also have programs that I don't know how many people know about, and certainly maybe they could do more advertisement. I have no idea, but where individuals that receive some of DSS services and public health services can get into the museum for nominal amount or even free. And so what we've committed to as a follow-up is to get that information when they open, to make sure that the clients that we serve also know about those opportunities as well. So they do have a lot of things in place to help our underserved community. And so it's just a matter of us really pushing out that information. But if you haven't been, I would urge you. I mean, I can't wait to go back when they open, whether my kids want to go with me or not. But I 100% agree that it will be a really, really great place for all of our community for experiential learning. I think it's unlike anything we've seen here in the county. So I think we will all be excited about it.
So do they have a record of for instance, I guess how many children come in per day and all of that kind of stuff?
Absolutely, and we can follow up and get that information to you. Yes, ma'am. It's very high numbers, and they're expecting to double those numbers when they open this museum.
I do have a question. My question was relative to, I heard you say that the county could have special events there for free. However, is there a cost for outside vendors who want to come in for special events?
So my understanding is that the museum is going to work with a rental service to coordinate those things. And so I'm not sure if there's a fee structure set up yet, but yes, ma'am, I understand that there will be a service for that.
There will be, okay. I'd like to know what that's going to look like too.
Okay. I know they're finalizing their agreement now. I'll be happy to get you some
And then
information.
we can kind of monitor how much they are making with that service. Okay, thank you.
And I will say that I think that's an interesting question that that's been raised by Commissioner McDaniel, because if the citizens have built it, but then there is this fee to go in and rent it, is it just based on, well, we just want to make sure that any incidentals? But if there is the idea that Callidium is going to charge this fee because we can, and we are the lawful, kind of tenant of this space, I would have concerns about that. Because to me, it's a public space. It's not for the profit of, per se, the Callidium. So I would hope that ideally, that whatever the rental fee is just based on, hey, we need to make sure we cover incidentals.
I can certainly get you some more information on what their plans are in that respect.
Commissioner, I think I think it's kind of addressing your earlier comment you made that Callidium doesn't want to be a stuffy museum. I think you said a 20th century museum. And so if they have corporate groups that are coming there, they want to be able to charge an amount, and that'll supplement the funding they get from the county or they get from the school kids. And so one of the things that Kirby's mentioned is we had to tweak our standard contract a little bit to address things like ABC licenses and things like that that you might not normally think of in a museum, but it is going to allow them some flexibility to make enough money to stay open without having to come to you quite as much, hopefully.
Kirby, did I hear you say that the county is responsible for the roofing?
ordinary roof maintenance. There's a portion of the roof that is not ordinary. It is an event space. And
It's in Exhibit Exhibit 2,
if you'll
right?
see the shaded area, Callidium will retain responsibility for that because it's not used as a roof. It's used as an event sort of space. So we're responsible for roof maintenance of the roof area that's used as a roof.
How about that play area? We're not responsible for any of that.
I'd have to ask James specifically if that aligns with the exhibit. I would assume that's part of their area. He says yes.
Okay.
What's the current warranty on that space and the roof as well?
That's a great James question.
So initially, we'll have a one-year warranty for full wraparound to everything in the building. And then after that, we'll have individual manufacturer warranties that come into play. For this one, for the roof system there, we did require that they provide a 20-year full wraparound warranty on the roof.
Fair enough. That's what I wanted to hear. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Further questions? Thank you, Kirby and Jim.
For the second item, as the board is aware, one of the responsibilities, the more exciting responsibilities of General Services is to manage the county's surplus property disposal process. Our goal is to reuse surplus as much as possible within the organization, since we believe the more we can reuse, the less we have to buy. In terms of process, items that have low reusability or are in low demand are set aside for, we aim for a quarterly GovDeals sale. You'll notice that this quarter's list is larger than normal. And the reason for that is we're trying to prepare the warehouse for all of the great stuff we're going to take out of the Hall of Justice. And so we're starting that clean out process now, and so we need to free up some space in the warehouse. So if approved by the board, the items attached to the resolution will be available for viewing by the public by appointment only starting January 22nd through February 5th. And folks that want to view those items can contact property management at 703-2232. Our auction will begin as an online auction January 29th, and it'll be active through February 12th. So in summary, the items listed in the resolution are items that we believe to be surplus to the needs of the organization and recommend that the board declare them surplus and authorize their sale utilizing the GovDeals service. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
Questions?
I have two questions. One is, if you buy, there's 183 chairs. If you buy one, do you have to take all 183?
So over time, we've learned how to balance customer ability to pick up chairs with profit. And so we actually break those into different lots.
Okay.
And so when you see them online, we have a variety of lots. I think we label them with letters, and we're down to lot like FF, I think, at this point. It's a lot of lots.
All right. It'll be amazing if all those sell. The other one is the Safari Jeep, which if somebody doesn't really pay attention, they could bid a lot for a Safari Jeep.
It is a display. It is not a Jeep. It's not. Yeah, I would encourage folks to take advantage of our appointment period and come view the items.
Gotcha.
And there are also pictures. There's a lot of pictures online. We go out of our way to make sure folks know what they're bidding on. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirby.
So if they make an appointment, they're guaranteed the opportunity.
If you want to come see them, we're going to make it happen. Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Kirby. Appreciate your hard work on all that. You've got a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor to collect an amount of $16,458.84. John's here if you have any questions about that. We do have two reports. You've got the Human Resources Report for the fiscal year 2023, 2024, and then you've got the November and December contribution-based benefit cap report. We did have one added item. We really do need to get a payment to a contractor who had done some work over a project that had a pretty extensive delay. I think James is going to come up and talk a little bit about, we're asking you to approve one of those quantum merit payments, or however you say that. It's basically a payment kind of after a contract's gone stale. So I think, yeah, and James is going to show some pictures. And I apologize. I was going to do this as a discussion item last Thursday. James waited through the whole meeting, and it was on my list, and I forgot it, and I looked at James. He walked up, and anyway, so thank you, Ashley, for letting us add it to the list. We appreciate that.
What button do I need to hit, Ashley, to make it bigger?
There you go.
All right. Thank you again for your time this afternoon. Just a quick review of the project. This was to construct an access road. The primary purpose to start is to have a permanent access to maintain the lift station that was installed back in, I believe that completed in 2019 or 2020, somewhere in that neighborhood. And more of the future purpose of this will be the access into the future business park that's there in that area. General timeline of the project, we received bids in March of 2021, and then unfortunately, due to delays from the railroad, we were not able to get started on that project. We had went through an approval cycle with the potential crossing, and then there were some changes at the railroad staffing level, and the new person coming in said, I don't care what the last guy said, I've got to do my own review on this. And so that essentially delayed it, about 9 months there. And then in late 2022, finally got everything squared away with the railroad. And they said, yep, we can do the crossing in December. And so Smith Row mobilized to the site in mid-November with anticipation of having everything wrapped up by the end of December of 2022. Unfortunately, the 1st of December rolled around and the railroad reached out to Smith Row and said, we don't have the materials to do the crossing. We're going to have to put you guys on hold. And then it was just a continuous from that point on with the railroad reaching out for an update of when are they going to have their rails and their materials to do the crossing. And so finally, the railroad did their portion of the crossing in April of 2023. And then due to the delays, Smith Row ended up demobilizing from the site in January. And then by the time that it worked back in their schedule to get back to the site, it was June of 2023 before they were able to resume work on site. And then we did accept the project as substantially complete on July 20th of 2023. Their total project cost was $273,990.23. And that does include an additional roughly $20,000 for unsuitable soils that was encountered during the performance of the work. And so more on those unsuitable soils. When they started the grading work, we discovered a significant amount of organic matter in the top 3 feet of soil. This was after they stripped off the topsoil. So we were down to the area where you don't expect to find a bunch of organics. So unfortunately, we had to dig down 3 feet across the width of the road from one end to the other. Ended up being about 814 cubic yards of unsuitable soils that had to be removed and replaced. We did have an allowance in the base contract of 250 cubic yards, so they ended up having to replace significantly more soils. And so kind of where we landed on the final cost, their contract was originally for $254,092, and then the additional unsuitable soils was about $40,000. But we did get a credit back from Smith Row for the railroad flagger allowance that was not needed, offsetting the cost of those additional unsuitable soils by $20,000. So at the end of the day, what we have is a need to make a quantum merit payment in the amount of $273,990.42 to Smith Row. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions?
I'm only surprised they didn't come back, based on previous experience in Norfolk Southern, in June of last year and say, we've got to look at it again, we'll get back to you in another 12 months.
Pretty remarkable, actually. So, yeah, need to get this done.
Other questions?
So when you put them on hold, a small voice was heard saying, hello? Hello? Did you ever get back with them?
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
All right. That's it.
That's it. Okay, good.
Move adjourn.
Since we started at 10 o'clock this morning, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.